Close your eyes. Point north. Don't overthink it. Don't track where the sun was an hour ago. Don't recall which side of the building you entered from. Just point. Reach for it. Tune into whatever part of you might hold the answer and point. You pointed somewhere. You're likely wrong. Most people in industrialized societies point incorrectly. Not off by a few degrees, by 90 degrees, by 180 degrees, by a gap so vast it signals not inaccuracy, but absence. The sense that could have guided you isn't broken. It isn't impaired. It's dormant. It's been dormant for so long you never knew it existed. But it's still there. The physical apparatus is inside you right now as you read this. The protein resides in your eyes. The mineral rests in your brain. The same biological system that every migratory bird, every sea turtle, every butterfly, every salmon uses to traverse thousands of miles without a map or compass is installed within you, wired active, present, yet powered down. Not silenced by evolution or mutation, by something far quicker and more peculiar than either. The further I investigated that force, the more I recognized a pattern so familiar from my other research that it ceased to surprise me and began to unsettle me. If this already disturbs you as it did me, keep reading, because the evidence grows more troubling. Let's begin with the hardware, since that much is beyond debate. In 1992, geophysicist Joseph Kirschvink at Caltech identified magnetite crystals in human brain tissue. Magnetite is a naturally magnetic iron mineral, the same compound found in the beaks of homing pigeons, in the skulls of migratory fish, and in the abdomens of honeybees. In every species where magnetoreception, the capacity to detect the Earth's magnetic field, has been firmly established, magnetite has been discovered in that organism's tissues. Kirschvink found it in ours too, not in trivial amounts, but in concentrations substantial enough to interact with external magnetic fields situated in the brainstem and cerebellum. The oldest, most evolutionarily primitive parts of the human brain. The regions that predate language, abstract thought, and everything that defines us as modern. The regions that were already operational when our forebears still migrated across continents on foot without maps. Next came the protein. In 2011, neurobiologist Stephen Reppert at UMass was studying how monarch butterflies navigate their annual migration from North America to central Mexico. A 3,000-mile journey undertaken by insects weighing under a gram. Their navigation depends on a protein called cryptochrome, found in the butterfly's eyes, which alters its quantum-level chemical behavior in response to magnetic fields. Cryptochrome doesn't merely detect magnetic fields, it renders them visible. It generates shifting light and dark patches across the visual field as the organism adjusts its orientation relative to the Earth's magnetic axis. The butterfly literally perceives the magnetic field superimposed on its vision like an overlay. Reppert took fruit flies, genetically modified to lack cryptochrome. They lost their magnetic detection ability. Then he performed something remarkable. He inserted the human version of the cryptochrome protein into those flies. Human cryptochrome, extracted from the human retina. The flies regained their magnetic sense. The human protein worked. The human protein sitting in your eye carries the molecular capacity for magnetoreception. It operates in a living organism. It detects magnetic fields. By every biological metric, it is a functional magnetoreceptor. And it's in your eyes at this very moment. This raises an obvious but crucial question. If the hardware is present, if the magnetite exists in the brain, and the cryptochrome in the eye, and the protein functions when tested in another creature, why can't you perceive it? The answer points to something more significant than a mere dormant trait. In 2019, Kirschvink published the most rigorous study of human magnetoreception to date. He placed subjects in a Faraday cage, a shielded chamber blocking all electromagnetic interference, and exposed them to controlled magnetic field rotations while recording brain activity via electroencephalography. When the field rotated in a specific pattern, replicating the stimulus a person would experience by turning their head in the Earth's natural field, some subjects exhibited a robust, measurable, repeatable drop in alpha brainwave activity. Not everyone. The response varied, but among those who showed it, the signal was unmistakable. The brain was detecting the magnetic field. The brain was responding to it. The brain was processing geomagnetic information below conscious awareness. Below conscious awareness. That phrase unlocks everything, because the sense isn't absent. It's suppressed. The brain receives the signal, but doesn't forward it to consciousness. The information enters through the eyes, through the magnetite, through whatever receptor system is active, and somewhere between reception and awareness, it's filtered out, discarded, treated as background noise. The brain has decided, or been conditioned to decide, that this input is irrelevant, that you don't need to know your orientation, that the magnetic field isn't something you should feel, as if following instructions it didn't fully understand. Here's where the silence becomes striking. Because there are populations on this planet who never lost it, who still retain it, who rely on it daily. Aboriginal Australians navigated an entire continent, desert, forest, coastline, for at least 65,000 years without written maps. Their navigation system, the songlines, encoded every geographic feature in sequences of sung verses that, when performed in order, guided travelers across hundreds of kilometers with an accuracy that astonished early European observers. Anthropologists accompanying Aboriginal navigators through barren desert reported that their guides could pinpoint their exact location and heading at any moment, even when the European companions were completely lost. Polynesian wayfinders crossed the largest ocean on Earth in open canoes, navigating by stars, wave patterns, bird behavior, and a directional sense so refined they could maintain a course for weeks across thousands of miles of open water. Nainoa Thompson, the modern Hawaiian navigator who revived traditional wayfinding in the 1970s, describes the practice as requiring the navigator to feel the canoe's relationship to swells, stars, and wind direction with the whole body, not to compute it, but to sense it. The Guugu Yimithirr people of northern Queensland don't use relative spatial language the way English speakers do. They don't say left, right, in front, behind. They use absolute cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, in every conversation. When a Guugu Yimithirr speaker tells a story, they'll say, "The man was sitting on the north side of the table, and the woman approached from the east." They maintain a constant, unconscious awareness of their orientation relative to the cardinal directions. Cognitive scientists who have studied them report that this awareness functions automatically, below deliberate thought. Their brains are performing something that most industrialized brains have forgotten. They always know which way they're facing. The pattern repeats with unsettling consistency. Every indigenous culture examined for navigational skill demonstrates a relationship to direction and spatial orientation that industrialized populations lack. Not because the indigenous brain differs. The hardware is identical. Magnetite exists in every human brain. Cryptochrome exists in every human retina. The distinction isn't biological. It's environmental, experiential. It's what occurs when a sense is never exercised. This raises a simple but critical question. What interrupted the training? If this thread grips you as it did me, consider passing it to someone who has never pondered why they can't point north. Because the answer lies in the architecture of the modern world. Before roughly 1850, most humans lived in direct engagement with the natural landscape. They navigated by sun, stars, wind, terrain, and the behavior of water animals and light. Every journey demanded spatial awareness. Every day began with an orientation to the sky, the sense of direction, whether or not it operated specifically through magnetoreception, was a capacity trained and reinforced from childhood by survival's demands. You had to know where you were. The landscape offered no signs. Roads bore no names. The world didn't come with a pre-imposed grid. Your body had to know. Then the grid arrived. In the span of a single century, humanity's navigational environment transformed completely. Named streets replaced footpaths. Numbered addresses replaced landmarks. Printed maps superseded spatial memory. Railways supplanted walking. Cities replaced landscapes. And the body's connection to direction, to the magnetic field, to the feeling of north became superfluous. Not incorrect. Not penalized, just unnecessary. The sense stopped being reinforced because the environment ceased to demand it. Children grew up in grid-patterned cities, where every navigational problem was solved by a sign, a number, or a question to a stranger. The training ceased, and within a few generations the sense went quiet. Not extinct, but silent. Kirschvink's experiments confirm it. The brain still perceives the field. The alpha wave response remains in some subjects, measurable, reproducible. The hardware was never removed. The software was never erased. The sense simply stopped being engaged. And the brain, ruthlessly efficient at allocating resources to functions that are actually used, gradually turned down the volume until the signal became indistinguishable from noise. The more I investigated, the more I found that the loss of magnetoreception follows the exact same trajectory as every other sensory and biological capacity I've studied. Segmented sleep was natural until artificial light rendered it unnecessary. The lunar month pregnancy count was universal until institutional obstetrics replaced it. Local solar time was embodied until railroads imposed standard time. Whistled language was a full neurological capability until telephones made it obsolete. And the magnetic sense, the ability to feel the Earth's field, to know without thinking which way you're facing, to carry an internal compass built into the human body since before our species had a name, remained alive until the built environment made it irrelevant. The pattern recurs with unsettling consistency across every domain. Capacities belonging to the body, replaced by technologies belonging to institutions. Skills held in the nervous system supplanted by devices held in the hand. Senses requiring no infrastructure, no subscription, no battery, no satellite, replaced by systems that demand all of those and fail without them. Let me pause here and pose something rarely asked. What did it feel like to always know where you were? Not through calculation, not by reference to a map or street sign or GPS dot. Through sensation, by the same kind of knowing with which you perceive hunger, or a cold room, or someone standing behind you. An awareness so fundamental, so constant, so deeply woven into the body's processing of the world, that it operated beneath conscious thought. You didn't think about north. You felt north. The way a bird feels north. The way a turtle hatching on a beach at midnight senses the direction of the ocean it has never seen. I'm not making a mystical assertion. I'm posing a neurological question. What does a human life feel like when one of its senses is active instead of silent? What does the world feel like when you are oriented within it? When your body's relationship to the planet's magnetic field is a continuous unconscious stream of information, telling you at every moment where you are and which way you're facing. And what does the world feel like when that sense goes quiet? When the stream stops? When the body is inserted into a grid of named streets and numbered buildings and glowing screens, and the ancient orientation system, the one that guided your species across continents and oceans for 100,000 years, is allowed to atrophy because no one needs it anymore. Because the phone knows, because the GPS has a signal, because the machine has supplanted the body once again. I don't have a complete theory. I have a question that multiplies the deeper I look. Why does the human brain hold magnetite concentrated in its most archaic regions? Why does the human retina contain a protein that functions as a magnetoreceptor when tested in another organism? Why does the brain display measurable responses to magnetic field shifts under controlled conditions? Why do indigenous cultures that preserve traditional navigation practices exhibit spatial orientation, abilities that industrialized populations have forfeited? And why, in an age when neuroscience can measure the brain's response to magnetic fields, is there so little funding, so little institutional interest, so little urgency in understanding a sense that every human being carries in their skull? If you've followed this thread to its end, share it, because someone needs to hear this before they open their map app for the 400th time today. I'll leave you with this. You are sitting or standing somewhere right now. The Earth's magnetic field is flowing through your body at this very moment. The same field that steers birds across hemispheres, that aligns compass needles, that has been a constant invisible presence on this planet for billions of years. And somewhere in the oldest part of your brain, in the stem built before your species could speak, there rests a cluster of magnetite crystals placed there by evolution for a reason. And somewhere in your eyes, there is a protein that detects that field. And somewhere between those receptors and your conscious awareness, there is a gate that was once open and is now closed. Not locked, not destroyed, closed by disuse, by replacement, by a world that handed you a grid and a screen and told you that you no longer needed to feel the planet. The sense is still there. The protein is still in your eye. The mineral is still in your brain. The gate can be reopened. Aboriginal navigators prove it. Polynesian wayfinders prove it. Gugu Yimithir speakers prove it every time they say the word north in a sentence about breakfast. Your body knows which way you're facing. It has always known. You just stopped listening. And now you can't recall that there was ever anything to hear.